Hi, everybody. I'm Joel, your host at the It's Nagelbush podcast. Tonight, we're going to talk about the why. We're going to talk about goals and decision making. But first, I wanted to talk to you about what's going to happen next Saturday at 11 o'clock in the morning, and that's the Change Mastery Luncheon. It's a luncheon from 11 o'clock in the morning till 2. It's a time where you're going to be able to learn how to find your purpose. You're going to learn how to find the purpose in change. You're going to learn how to identify change agents and why you need to identify change agents. We're going to start the seminar off with a discussion on reframing what the word change means. The company that I represent, Fostering a Dynamic Impact, it's also known as FADI, and FADI is the change management company. And what we do is try to get you to learn how to speak a new language with the word change. There are no accidents in your life, right? So God doesn't make mistakes, and the universe just doesn't turn on you and conspire to screw you up. So if the things that are happening to you are not by accident because the universe and God aren't conspiring to screw you up, then they have a purpose. And if we reframe the word change to some of the stressors that come into your life, some of the things that disrupt your life, then you can better find the purpose in them. We're going to teach you how to become a little bit more present moment minded. We're going to teach you how to reframe your thought process and get a better handle with how your brain naturally develops bias and how those bias influence your decision-making process. There's going to be a lot of information given out in the first 3 hours. One of the benefits of going to a seminar with somebody who's just starting a business is that you're going to get a lot of information dumped on you because, if anything, I want to make sure that you're walking away with some real value. This isn't just a time where you're going to go sit down and have a good lunch, hang out and laugh for a few hours. You're going to get to do that. But you're also going to have resources that you walk out with that'll be reminders for you to help you stay motivated, that'll help you stay inspired. Because as you'll see in the seminar, I keep it real. And I understand that inspiration needs to be redone. I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast today, and he's talking about it's like a bath. It only works if you continue to do it. And you can't have a bath today and then not do it for a while. So you have to maintain. That was a crazy analogy, but I was listening to Joe, and he's inspiring for me. You have to maintain the inspiration, and you're going to walk out of this seminar with tools in your hand that will allow you to do that. You won't be able to drive home without using some of the techniques that I'm going to demonstrate that day, and you certainly won't forget me. You can get tickets on Eventbrite. You can Google the Change Mastery Luncheon. It certainly comes up. It's 3 hours out of your day. I promise it'll be worth it. I'm a motivational speaker, life coach, cancer survivor. I've had my ass kicked by life. I got back up. I'm smiling. I'm not perfect. But I'm here to deliver a message on change and how the stressors of change can impact our life. Change is no shit. And whether you are looking to embrace and tackle change, whether you're afraid of change, whether you know change is coming or not, it is one of life's inevitabilities. As human beings, we're here to evolve and grow, and the best way to do that is by learning. Even if you don't do shit with your life, you sit on the couch, your body is going to grow. There's change. You're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to adapt to that. The more effectively and more efficiently that you can adapt to change, the easier it is to find the purpose in it. And the topic of tonight's podcast is about the why. If anything, after this luncheon, if anything, after one of my life coaching sessions, you get off the phone with me, we're just shooting a shit, having a beer, whatever it is. If you're more directed at finding your purpose, if you're at the very least just looking for your purpose, I've done my job. My goal is to have an impact on you. It's to inspire you. I'm here to help. And if you can identify what your why is, if you can learn the techniques to see what it is, then when shit happens to you, you can see it as the bumper cars of life, where it's just bumping you back into the place you're supposed to be. That path, right? Because there are no accidents. God or the universe didn't make a mistake and you ended up where you are. To be straight up with you, if you think that whatever created us, whatever your God is, whatever this universe is, if you think that it has taken time out of running all this shit and looked at you and said, you know what, I'm going to fuck his life up, you're crazy. And I only say that because it means that it's not an accident. And life isn't out to get you. And if it's not out to get you, then you got to ask, what's the purpose? And you have to look to find the purpose. And listen, I'm not saying that I have the answers to all of these things that happen to you, all these big change agents, financial changes, financial difficulties, financial hardships, whether it's health changes, health hardships, whether you want to get healthier and you're already in good shape, or you get sick, or somebody around you gets sick, or a death, or a loss, some kind of whatever. All of those things, if we stop speaking a language and just call them change and see them as agents to get us back into where we're supposed to be, remembering that everything happens for a reason, then we're able to manage the impact of change more effectively right away. And that'll impact your life immediately. The physiological resistance, the response to stress, the physiological response to stress. Because people are naturally resistant to things, right? So stress impacts us in certain ways. Change is something that we're naturally resistant to. We have a natural bias to change. Some of us love change. Some of us enjoy the chaos. But typically, human beings like structure. And we like predictability. And not everyone does well inside the chaos of change. Some people thrive in it. But typically you need some kind of structure. And without that kind of structure, because huge change in your life, a death or a trauma or an accident or a job loss, shifts all of that. It ruins your routine. Even the thought process, how your brain gets into a habit of expectation, it gives you a sense of peace. Then throw in some huge change agent, it starts to stress the shit out of you. And it manifests itself in crazy ways. You stop sleeping, you get increased blood pressure. Your hands start to shake. What happens when you stop sleeping well? You stop eating well, you become a crabby asshole. It starts to influence your decision-making process. From an organizational standpoint, those things can destroy, from a human resource management approach, those things increase sick time. You want your staff at work. Create some chaos, create some change. The anxiety comes from the fear of the unknown that's on the other side of the change. If I told you that you're going to become this great spiritual warrior, but before you do that, you're going to have to go through some really hard shit for a year. But man, you're going to be wise. What do? You go through it, yeah. And that's the difference in the game, right? Like that's, it's the fear of the unknown. That's what the air quote test of faith is that it's all going to be okay. It's what the big problem with death is for people, is that the fear of the unknown. So it's scary. I'm not professing. Listen, I'm scared of shit too. But back to change and back to the impact that change has on people's lives, the physiological side of it. There is the uncertainty that comes with change. You know, we spoke about that. It can be inside of a relationship change. It doesn't have to even be a real tremendous shift, like an earthquake change. It can be small shifts. It can be small things, little tiny change agents that pop into your relationship, that end up becoming something that crack the foundation that your relationships build on. Right? So we talk about some of the physiological impacts of change in the seminar. We talk about it. It's really part of the foundation of the company. There are psychological influences of change. And of course, at this stage of the game, if you're likely listening to this podcast, then you've dealt with some kind of shit in your life. And you know what comes from that. And if you, like I said, reframe the word and say, you know, you've been through some change in your life, and we talk about the psychological impact of that change, the irritability, the depression, the anxiety. When those things start to surround your outlook, everything that you speak comes through those windows of depression, anxiety, irritability. My sister has a quote at the bottom of her emails and says, your perception defines your reality. That's real shit. The law of attraction. And you start to view things that way. None of you are designed depressed. Right? So, but the uncertainty and the fear of change, those are real. And I would argue that the hard change is a little bit easier to deal with than the change that's creeping up on you, right? Because it's the weight. The fear, the time to soak in. Oh my God, what the fuck? But if you learn what your purpose is, if you can identify what your why is, the why you get out of bed, the why you do what you do, the why you go through what you do, then as you're going through what you do, you know what your purpose is. It adds a little bit. It gives you something to lean on. It also gives you an anchor. So when you're inside the chaos, you can look at, oh shit, this isn't right. Change agent identified. Oh shit, that's where I want to be. I need to swing this way. Picture yourself on like you're on a boat trying to find a place to dock in this wavy shit of this chaos of life. You're going to make decisions that are going to disrupt your path, right? Those disruptive decisions often teach you the most. You can't avoid them. But the sooner that you can identify that that's what's happening, the sooner you can start to rechart, the sooner you can start to redirect your energies. You have control over your life. You have control over what's happening to it. At the very least, you have control over how you react to it. There are people listening to this podcast. There are people that are in my life that are dealing with things that I call faith testers. This is a little tangent here. Sick kids, the loss of kids that have been shot, dealing with real shit. They're huge change agents, man. And to see them get through what they get through, to see them move on and try to inspire other people, to see them still smile, even though they're in that kind of pain, doesn't mean that your stuff means any less. It just means that it is something that you can manage, that you can get a hold of. And if you can find your purpose, If you can identify that the shit that's going on in your life is designed to teach you that those change agents are there to help you, that when you're feeling depressed and anxious, you have insomnia and headaches, that this is your body's response to being, I would say, distracted from your purpose, moved away from your purpose, not in alignment with your why. And that's typically how you find out what your why is. Because when you're aligned with it, it makes you happy. It relieves stress. It's not always your job. It's not always something on the side. It's not finding out exactly what your why is requires me to sit down with you and have a detailed conversation about how and who you are and where you came to be. I believe that you're the sum of your experiences, right? And those experiences influence how we respond to change. So that means that most people will respond in a certain way, but all of us have different needs. All of us have different motivators. All of us are going to respond to our environment differently. So the way that we manage change requires a huge umbrella of techniques, a huge umbrella of, I want to say, modalities that allow you to take specific parts of change and manage it in ways that are relatable to different parts of your life. You're not likely going to manage change in your relationships the same way you're going to manage them inside an organization. However, managing them, they are fundamentally similar. All right, are they not? Right, so decisions, hold on, I'm flipping some stuff around. They're fundamentally similar. So what happens is you get to a place where, I'm having some technical difficulty, sorry guys. One of the problems with producing this myself is that I run into some stuff. So, all right, so we're talking about change. Back to it, sorry. Soon I'll have a producer and I'll have somebody in my ear that can handle all this stuff, but let's get back on track and talk to you about corporate change and change inside your relationship and change inside your work. Not from a corporate sense, they're different, right? Because corporate change can be from a corporate function, from the functionality inside of an organization where you're becoming a change management machine. Corporations can actually use change management as a sustainable competitive advantage. And if you can incorporate an organizational culture that embraces and adapts to change efficiently and effectively, its chances of succeeding grow exponentially. And that requires communication. Effective change management requires communication. That's where the similarities grow, right? Because effective change management inside your relationships require communication. You are not going to live in a successful relationship if you are unable to communicate. It's impossible because you're going to change. That's the real challenge of the relationship, right? It's finding somebody that throughout the next 50 years or 60 years, whatever you're going to be, that you're going to grow together at the same pace, that you're going to change together at the same pace. When you do find that person, they become part of your purpose, you're aligned. They call that love, and everything, you move forward as a team and blah, 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 blah. The dynamic of change is similar. The basic techniques of approaching change are similar. You need to know who you are. You need to know how to control the thought process that drives all the chaos in your head. You need to learn the ability to reframe your thought process so you can see change as something that's there to make you better. Because if it's there to make you better, then you're going to naturally want to lean into it. You're going to naturally be motivated to grab it. But I don't have the answer to it. Listen, if you go through some shit right now, on the other side of that, it's going to be magic. I don't have the answer to that. I've lived through several huge change agents. My fire was an 8-month period where I learned that I had cancer. I learned that I was going to have a son. I learned that my son was going to need a liver transplant to survive at 3 months old, which he ultimately got at 6 months old, in the same facility that had just killed my grandmother by accident, who went in for a routine back surgery and they whoopsed it, and she died while I'm trying to graduate college, manage 3 jobs, learn how to be a man. It was a lot. I'm not complaining because I'm grateful for it all now. The longer you listen to this podcast, the longer you follow and support me, you go to a seminar, you'll hear more of the details about what happened in that. How all of these things that were happening in this chaos, there were still little things around me to remind me to be grateful. And that's our job. And if we can see that there's a purpose in it, there's less chaos associated with it. Our brain's less likely to get that snowball effect. What's that? You know, when you get that little thought in your head, that little scenario, and that all of a sudden that little scenario becomes this all-consuming, worked-out project, or some bullshit about somebody else, or some argument you're gonna have. You've taken yourself out of the now. You've taken yourself away from the purpose. And because of that, you make decisions that get you away from there because you're consumed with it. You all have experienced that. How many of you have been on a drive one day, 20 minutes or so, and get to the other place in the afternoon and been like, damn, I don't remember any part of that? Because your mind's going crazy. There's power in simplicity, and we teach that. We profess that because, back to finding your purpose, if you can find your purpose, then you're not as likely to get caught up in the chaos of mind noise, right? There are stressors that are going to lead you into worry. Let's be realistic here, you know? But that's part of the reframing process. This is a rewiring. You've been conditioned with these natural biases to resist change and to look at things of the unknown as something that might hurt you or something to be fearful of. And because of that, growth is stunted. Spiritually, growth is stunted sometimes also from a physical standpoint. Financially, because fear of the unknown influences our decisions. So, with that said, let's talk about goals. It's 2019. And we are 11 days into the new year. And I would hope that most of you who have made New Year's resolutions are keeping them. The trick with New Year's resolutions is that, you know, often by the end of January, nobody is maintaining the discipline needed to resolve the goals that they made. So I wanted to talk about some of the characteristics that are needed to have goals that are sustainable throughout the year. And Um, the first characteristic is that goals are precise and measurable. Okay? Measurable goals will give you, a yardstick like your purpose does. It's a standard that you can judge whether or not you're going in the direction that you want to go. A very vague goal would be, for the New Year's to lose weight. You want to lose weight? Okay, that's great. But you need measurable, precise goals. What are you going to do to lose the weight? How are you going to get to the first 10% of your weight loss? Then what are you going to do for the next 20%? Are you precise? Are you measuring your weight loss in percentages? Is it going to be in weight? Is it going to be in, measurable? It might feel like a pain in the ass. But if you set a goal, it's obviously something that you want to attain, and it's not easy. So that means that it's going to be difficult to get to. And those difficulties are going to be change agents that are going to push you away from your goal. If it's precise and measurable, you'll be able to identify things that are pushing you away faster. They influence your decision-making process that way. You also have to make sure that the goals are going to address crucial issues. Right? You want a new car? Is that really what you need? Going for an education? Is that really what you need to get to your goal? What's your goal? Where do you want to be? You need a new workout set? How are you going to get there? You got to make sure you can focus on it. Don't set a whole bunch of goals. Keep it efficient. Set a few goals. Manage them. You can apply this to your personal life. You can apply this to your gym. You can apply this in your organization. Make sure that the goals you select are important, that they're crucial, that they're going to influence change in your life that's going to direct you to the place that you want to be, that you're happiest. And most importantly, I bring this up as number 3, but I would argue this is the most important. You have to make sure that the goals that you select are challenging, but realistic. Okay, and set incentives for yourself along the way. Make sure the incentives are realistic. Make sure the incentives are attainable. Make sure the incentives are rewarding. They got to drive you in the chaos of change. If a goal is unrealistic, it's going to pose challenges. It's going to be easier to give up. If it's too easy, it's going to be very difficult to stay motivated. And then, another one of those things that you just simply can't avoid is time. And since you can't avoid time, like you can't avoid change, the best thing you can do is look for ways to manage it more effectively. Specify a time period that you want to achieve these goals, that you want to achieve these. Each incentive should be achieved by when. Each goal to reach that incentive should be achieved by when. I'm going to get that incentive when I do this, and I'm going to be this much to my goal. Celebrate that shit, man. Put the deadlines. Deadlines for me, personally, drive me freaking crazy. Because I don't sleep. It's all I'm thinking. Deadline, gotta get it. But they're effective that way. And I'm my own worst enemy there, right? All I have to do is manage the time more efficiently. Working towards my doctorate. The key to that is effective time management. So, change is part of life's growth process, right? Corporate, societal, physiological, psychological change is just part of this ride. And because it's part of the ride, and obviously everybody's goal is to be happy, you know, we could break it down from there, whether how you get to that point of happiness. And it's I would believe that at this point in the game, everybody understands that finding that path to happiness is pretty much what everybody's goal is. So if you can find out how to get exactly to where that goal is, then you can help find your purpose. If you can find your purpose, then it'll drive you to your why. They're kind of the same thing that way. It just helps calm some of the storm. You're going to grow one way or another. The longer you ignore life's lessons, the harder they get. And those life lessons are typically associated with huge change and the impact that they roll on us. Sometimes it's small change. There's cognitive biases that influence our decision-making process. Many of those biases we're not even aware of. They become part of our personality. But there's obviously certain behavioral traits that can be unlearned. You're definitely not the same person you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I know I'm not. It's about rewiring, like I mentioned earlier. Whether you want to learn how to manage change or not, it's coming. You should be prepared. You can be prepared. I mean, why not? You need a strategy, right? There's a reason that Fortune 500 companies spend a significant portion of their capital on strategy. Planning systems. Have a formal planning system to get to your goals. Have a formal planning system around your purpose, around getting to your purpose, around getting your life, reframing your thought process to a place where you're able to create a formal strategy that evolves and adapts, that has some ambiguity to it. Because obviously there's a tremendous amount of unpredictability in life, right? So you want to create a formal plan that is not going to move with that. There's small chance events that are going to dominate your life. Those chance events are not by accidents, right? But in the moment we don't see that. And you don't have to stop at every second and try to figure out what that is. But if your brain is thinking more about your purpose and what makes you happy and not about all the rest of the shit in your world, not all about the things in the future, not all about the things in the past, that you're more present moment minded, that you're being more mindful, that you're living a life with more gratitude, then you're likely to be able to live in a world where your strategy allows you to be protected from much of the chaos. You're going to need a plan that includes it not working. Because you can't predict what kind of change agents are coming in your life. There's going to be events that happen that are going to create an atmosphere that require you to have a formal strategy that is also, what's the word I want to use, emergent. Right? You put your strategy and plan, and there's part of it that has deliberate strategies where you're going to work out, where you're going to efficiently get to point A to point B, where you're going to access resources. But you're also going to need another part of a strategy that is going to take place when the unplanned happens. How are you going to respond to unforeseen circumstances? Do the unforeseen circumstances require a strategic shift? The only way you can know that is if you actually know where you're going, if you know what your purpose is, if you know what your why is. This is a highly effective approach in business. So use a combination, an emergent strategic approach. And you do this with your decision-making process too. You know how your thoughts work, how you're that inner child or whatever, you got that voice in your head. Is it nurturing? Does it argue? Is it both? You know? That's the reframing part. You start to get a change management behavior culture inside your brain and your thought process, and your behavior starts to reflect that. You start to move away from some of the biases that influence human decision-making processes. How we reach decisions and how we process information is typically not accurate. We usually fall back on things, heuristics, rules of thumb. It helps us understand the complexities in a world that's really complex. Okay, scholars call this cognitive capabilities. We call it how our brain works. It influences some of your experiences, right? So you're going to have biases in your life that are going to influence your now and your future, and they do it subconsciously. That's what's so fantastic about finding out what your why is and what your purpose is and what motivates you. Because if you can find that, if you can manage your thoughts in a manner that allows you to identify where you want to go, what kind of impact you want to be, and how dynamic you want to be, and how you want to foster a dynamic impact, then you live a purpose-driven life. And there's nothing more rewarding than that. There's nothing more rewarding than a purpose-driven life. But you have to be strategic about it. It's your life. You're in control over it. It's your organization. You're in control over it. It's your relationship. You're in control over it. The change is there. It's coming. There are techniques to manage it, but you have to identify that it's there to teach. January 19th, Change Mastery Luncheon. What? Man, I couldn't put enough information on the flyer. This was just a quick 40-minute talk. And I'm limited because I'm trying to sit down and I'm trying to do a video. But when I can move around and get that white boy boogie on, there's more information. My purpose is to have an impact. My goal at that seminar, at that luncheon, will be to impact your life. I won't waste your time. Google the Change Mastery Luncheon. It's on the beach. It's 3 hours. And I'm going to feed you. I'm not here to put you in a position where you are questioning everything that you are. This seminar is hopefully going to give reason to a lot of the things that you've gone through. My life coaching sessions help you find reason in the things that you're going through. Identifying purpose and change is how you find reason in the things that you're going through. I hope that you're having a badass week. I hope that you enjoy the shit out of your weekend. And I'm grateful that you have taken the time to listen to this podcast. I'm not asking for any money, but what I would like for you to do is subscribe, follow it, download it. Apple, iTunes, 10 different platforms. Check us out on YouTube, dynamicimpact.co. It's Nagelbush Instagram, Joel Nagelbush Facebook. Endure the Elements on Facebook. Wifey's got a project going. And stay grateful. We didn't even talk about gratitude tonight. But damn it, stay grateful.